In the small town of Santa Lucia nestled deep in the mountains of California, the locals would often speak of the eerie and ominous Dark Watchers. They were said to be tall, dark figures that appeared on the mountaintops at dusk, silently watching over the land below. Nobody knew where they came from, or what they wanted, but the townspeople had learned to fear their presence. One autumn evening, a group of hikers decided to venture into the mountains to explore the wilderness. As they climbed higher and higher, they began to notice the air growing colder, and the sky growing darker. Suddenly, they heard a faint whisper in the wind, almost as if the mountains themselves were speaking. It said, "Beware the Dark Watchers, for they are always watching." Ignoring the warning, the hikers continued on their journey, eager to see what lay ahead. But as they reached the mountaintop, they were met with a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. There, standing in the shadows, were the Dark Watchers. At first, the hikers were frozen with fear. They had heard stories of these figures, but had never actually seen them before. The Dark Watchers were tall and thin, with long flowing cloaks that billowed in the wind. Their eyes were dark and hollow, and seemed to glow with an otherworldly energy. And as the hikers looked closer, they realized that there were not just one or two, but dozens of Dark Watchers standing on the mountaintop, watching over them. Suddenly, the wind began to pick up, and the Dark Watchers started to move. They began to approach the hikers, their long cloaks flowing behind them. The hikers tried to run, but it was too late. The Dark Watchers were too fast, too powerful. They surrounded the hikers, trapping them in a circle. For what seemed like hours, the hikers stood in terror as the Dark Watchers closed in around them. They could hear the sound of their own heartbeats pounding in their ears, and the whispering of the wind as it howled through the mountaintops. And then, with a sudden burst of energy, the Dark Watchers vanished into thin air, leaving the hikers alone on the mountaintop. Shaken and terrified, the hikers made their way back down the mountain, vowing never to return to Santa Lucia again. But as they left, they couldn't shake the feeling that the Dark Watchers were still watching them, waiting for their next move. In the days that followed, the people of Santa Lucia began to notice a change in the mountains. The air grew colder, the winds grew stronger, and strange shadows began to appear on the mountaintops. And then, one night, the Dark Watchers returned. This time, they didn't just appear on the mountaintops, but they started to descend into the town itself. They prowled the streets at night, their eyes glowing in the darkness. The people of Santa Lucia tried to flee, but they were trapped, surrounded by the Dark Watchers. For weeks, the town was in the grip of terror. People disappeared in the night, never to be seen again. Those who remained huddled together, trying to protect themselves from the Dark Watchers. And then, one day, the Dark Watchers disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind a town that was forever changed.